You know how people say something was ahead of its time? Well, if you look up ahead of its time in the dictionary, you'll see a picture of 2001: A Space Odyssey. In what could be considered one of, if not the greatest artistic collaborations of all time, legendary filmmaker Stanley Kubrick and legendary science fiction author Arthur C. Clarke teamed up to create 2001: A Space Odyssey. This review is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to talk about the movie first because in the case of 2001, the movie is not based on the book. The book is actually based on the screenplay for the movie. In fact, Kubrick and Clarke were working simultaneously on both the screenplay and the novel. Both were released in 1968, although the movie came out a few months beforehand. However, the screenplay for the movie is loosely based on one of Arthur C. Clarke's previous short stories called The Sentinel that he wrote in 1948. I feel like this is one of those movies that you either love or hate. It appears on many lists of the greatest movies of all time and is considered by many to be the greatest science fiction movie of all time. Its official premiere in Washington in 1968 did not go well, however. Apparently, more than 200 people walked out of the theater, including actor Rock Hudson, who famously said, "Will someone tell me what the hell this is about?" This movie feels like it was inspired by or a metaphor for an acid trip. However, it did go on to become the highest grossing film of 1968. I am a big fan of Stanley Kubrick. I would put him on the Mount Rushmore of greatest directors of all time, and many people consider 2001: A Space Odyssey to be his finest achievement. By the way, this video will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it and come back later and watch this. So, what is this movie about? Well, in a nutshell, it is about the search for extraterrestrial life. There's a structure known as a monolith that first appears on Earth during prehistoric times. Then, one is found on the moon millions of years later, and a small crew of astronauts is then sent on a mission across the solar system to figure out what the heck this thing is and who put it there. More broadly speaking though, both the movie and the book are about evolution and the origins of human consciousness, the dangers of artificial intelligence, and man's place and purpose in the universe. Okay, so what is there to love about this movie? Let's just start with the soundtrack. I mean, the opening credit sequence alone is awe-inspiring. Kubrick insisted on using classical music for the film instead of going with an original score, and thank God he did because it works perfectly. And the music used for the monoliths is creepy as hell. The cinematography in this film is breathtaking. It was shot on 65mm film, and I mean, every single frame of this movie is beautiful. Not to mention the groundbreaking visual effects. Combined with the music, this movie is mesmerizing. I mean, this movie was filmed before we even went to the moon, for God's sakes, and it still looks like it could have been shot yesterday. It is that good looking. The Dawn of Man sequence. The stones on Kubrick to start a movie this way. Oh my God. The beginning is just people in ape costumes barking at each other for like 10 or 15 minutes. Their costumes are pretty damn good looking, if I'm gonna be honest. For 1968, come on. The sounds they make are terrifying. Their movements are pretty realistic. I read Kubrick hired professional mimes and dancers to play the parts of the apes, and they did a pretty good job. And that leopard attack scene, holy shit. The fact that this movie is rated G is hilarious to me because look at this. I actually loved the beginning of this movie. I personally am really interested in evolutionary biology and psychology, so I was pretty into and fascinated by seeing what we were like millions of years ago, and this concept that Clarke and Kubrick had to explain how we became conscious and where and how we discovered how to use tools, because this movie tries to answer that question. HAL 9000, he is the program that runs the spaceship, essentially, and he's one of the first examples of artificial intelligence in cinema. And the actor who does the voice for Hal, Douglas Rain, does a phenomenal job because Hal's voice is creepy as all get out.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
And I was not ready for the scene when Dave disconnects Hal's memory.
I'm afraid, Dave.
It is haunting.
My mind is going. I can feel it.
I can totally see and understand why people might think that this movie is slow and boring. The first line of dialogue isn't even spoken in this movie until I think after the 20-minute mark, which is insane. The plot is also a bit weak and hard to follow, and this movie is pretty confusing too, especially the ending. The ending is weird as f***. Roger Ebert offers what I think is a pretty good explanation of the movie's ending. He says, quote,
"What Kubrick is saying in the final sequence, apparently, is that man will eventually outgrow his machines or be drawn beyond them by some cosmic awareness. He will then become a child again, but a child of an infinitely more advanced, more ancient race."
And I think that that is what we are supposed to believe that Dave eventually gets transformed to when he becomes that little baby or the star child. He has transcended into something beyond just human. Whatever this monolith created by the aliens did to him, it created in him a new being, something that is beyond human and godlike. And while based on the movie's screenplay, the book by Arthur C. Clarke is still its own thing. It is able to dive deeper into existential questions about humanity and consciousness and the search for extraterrestrial life. Clarke gives you a lot more information about the aliens. Clarke writes, quote, "In their explorations, they encountered life in many forms and watched the workings of evolution on 1,000 worlds. And because in all the galaxy they had found nothing more precious than mind, they encouraged its dawning everywhere." Some other differences between the movie and the book include, in the book, the mission is to Saturn, not Jupiter. Hal's decline into becoming a villain happens a little bit differently, and his death scene in the book is pretty quick and anticlimactic. And one of the most memorable scenes in the movie, part where Frank and Dave are talking together in a pod so Hal cannot hear what they're saying, and then you learn that Hal has been reading their lips. That actually never happens in the book. Dave is just talking to Hal one moment and kind of just let it slip that, hey, I might disconnect you if you keep acting weird. Dave does not try to save Frank in the book like he does in the movie. Dave sees Frank floating off and just is like, there's no way that guy's coming back. The book ends differently than the movie. In the book, the star child is gazing, looking down on Earth, just like in the movie, but in the book, he detonates a bunch of nuclear warheads that are circling Earth in the atmosphere, I believe. And that would have been, in my opinion, a way cooler ending to the movie, because the movie just kind of ends and nothing really happens. You just see this baby floating above Earth. The book, though, illustrates the kind of power that this star child has, letting you know that he's got capabilities beyond what any human can possibly do. I read that Kubrick didn't want to do that at the end of this movie, bombs going off, because he said it would have been too similar to the end of Dr. Strangelove, one of his other movies. This book is a perfect companion to the film. If you're a big fan of the movie and you haven't read the book, I highly recommend that you read it. I do not think that you'll be disappointed. I think you'll really enjoy it. It adds a lot of context and additional information that you do not get in the movie. That being said, though, while it's not my favorite movie of all time, I do think that 2001: A Space Odyssey is a masterpiece of filmmaking, and one that obviously inspired generations of films and filmmakers to come. So yeah, I'm gonna say it's better than the book. All right, I want to hear from you. Have you seen the movie and or read the book by Arthur C. Clarke? Comment below, let me know your thoughts, and if you like this video, please do me a favor. Subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, like this video, please share it with your friends. Stay tuned for more videos in the near future. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later.